It's time to set up Nextcloud. Hello again everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. In today's video, what we're going to do is set up Nextcloud on Ubuntu Server 2404. And Nextcloud is awesome. If you haven't checked out Nextcloud, you really should because it's just so cool. You could use it to replace proprietary services like Google Workspace, among others. And best of all, Nextcloud gives you full control over your data, which is really cool. And in this video, I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know to set it up. Now, if you followed previous videos on my channel that goes over this same process, you're not really going to learn anything new here. It's the same process again. It's just that I've updated this for Ubuntu 2404 to make sure that it works for anyone that's using the newer distribution. And this whole thing came about when a client that recently utilized my consulting service asked me to set them up with a Nextcloud server. I did so, and in doing so, I noticed that some things have changed, so it was probably time to update this video. So by the end of this video, you too will have a Nextcloud server. I can't wait to walk you through the process, but before I do, I just want to take a moment to let you know that the official shop for Learn Linux TV has just been updated with brand new products. So that means all of you out there that are distro hoppers, you could grab a distro hopper shirt. For all of you coffee fans, I have an apt install coffee shirt that's doing really well. A lot of people love that one. There's mouse pads, backpacks, fanny packs. There's all kinds of things in the official Learn Linux TV shop. So support Learn Linux TV and get yourself something nice at the same time. It's a win-win. Now it's time to set up Nextcloud, so let's get started. Now the first thing that we're going to need is a server to install Nextcloud onto. Right now I have a server right here that's booting up, so that's the first thing that you'll need. You can, of course, set up Nextcloud on a physical machine within your network, but if you do that, I'll have to leave it up to you to expose that network publicly and securely, which is outside the scope of this video, but it's usually better to use a VPS for this kind of thing because a VPS can basically be a DMZ of sorts. Now, another thing that you're going to need is a domain name. Here I have nc.learnlinux.tv. Learnlinux.tv is the domain name that I own, obviously, and nc is the host name of the server that you see right here. So I've already built it. I built it in Akamai. You could use whatever cloud provider you want, DigitalOcean, Akamai, there's a number of others. Akamai was a sponsor for Learn Linux TV for a long time, and I still use their service. But anyway, just get yourself a Linux server. You could go ahead and use whatever VPS service you want to. You just need the IP address. I already have one here, as you can see. And then what you do is make sure that the A record for your desired domain name points to that IP address. To make sure that it does, what we could do is open up a terminal. And then what we could do is type nslookup. And then we simply look up the domain that we want to use with Nextcloud. If you've just created the A record within your DNS provider, then it might take some time for this to propagate, but I set mine up earlier this morning, so it should be good to go. And it is. You can see that the IP address right there matches the one that we see within my Akamai console. So that part is all set. You basically just want to make sure that you're good to go when it comes to DNS, and you should be all set to continue. Now, another thing that I'm going to mention before we get started is that we should make sure that we have enough resources for Nextcloud. Now, admittedly, this server right here is probably overkill. I don't think I'm going to use 160 gigabytes of storage for a demo. I don't plan on storing anything here at all because I have my own Nextcloud anyway. I just want to show you guys how to create one. I have 8 gigs of RAM and 4 cores. You could definitely go lower than that. You don't have to have a machine spec as high as mine is here. I just want to make sure that my tutorial goes fast, because I'm a little impatient in post. But anyway, we have a server, and what I want to do is connect to that server, and this will be another opportunity to make sure that the IP address works, or that DNS resolution works, because I'm going to use SSH to, well, SSH into the server. And often when you create a VPS, like I have here, you'll have a root user. So I'll just add root as my username here, and I'll log in. I'll say yes. I'll type in my super secret password for root and press enter. So let's get started and transform this Ubuntu server into a Nextcloud server. Now the first thing we're going to do is complete some odds and ends before we start really building the server. We want to set the host name, for example, create a user for ourselves, make sure that the system is fully up to date, things like that. Now, I do have a video on my channel that goes over all the minimum things that you should do for every Linux server that you create. So I do recommend that you watch that video. However, some of the things that I'm going to go over right now are going to duplicate some things that I went over in that video. I just want to make sure that you guys have everything that you need in this video, but I do recommend that you take a look at that one as well. Anyway, the first thing that I'm going to do is type add user. I want to add a system user for myself, and I'll just press enter on that command there. And that'll create user J. And now I'll set a password. I'll type it again, and then I'll press enter. Now you can fill out these fields if you want to, but I'm just going to skip these by pressing enter. I don't really care about any of these. Notice that Y is capital, so by pressing enter here, I am choosing the default of Y. The default option is the one that's capitalized. So I'll press enter, and we now have user J on this system. In order for this user to execute administrative commands, what I'll need to do is add this user to the sudo group. For that, I'll run usermod -a uppercase G, and the group name will be sudo, followed by the name of the user that I want to add to that group, which is the one that I just created, so I'll press enter. Now if I type groups, and then the username, we'll see that my user right here, the one that I just created, is a member of the sudo group. Next, what I'll do is set the host name. So we can use nano, etc hostname, and we're going to edit the host name of the system. Now I do have a video that covers the hostname command if you want to check that out. But what I'm going to do here is add the fully qualified domain name for my Nextcloud server. So this will be whatever domain you want to use with yours. On my end, I want to use this domain right here. So we'll save the file and then exit out. Next, we're going to edit another file, etc hosts. We'll add another line right here, just under this entry. We basically want this machine to be able to resolve its own hostname. That's essentially what we're doing here. Then what we'll do is type in the domain. After that, we'll type in the host name. So if we want to refer to this local machine as NC, we can do that. I'll save the file and exit out. Next, we're going to run apt update, then apt dist upgrade. This will install all security updates on the system, make sure we're all up to date. Now we do have some updates that are pending. We don't need to worry about these right now. I updated this machine earlier today, so we should be good to go. We set the host name. The machine should be up to date at this point. Next, what we could do is type reboot to reboot the system, and that'll make sure that all the updates are applied, everything's good to go, and we'll just wait for this to come back up. So what we could do is type ping and then nc.learnlinux.tv or whatever your domain happens to be. We're just waiting to get some replies to this. We want to know when the machine is up, and as soon as the machine has rebooted, we should see some replies to the pings. And I'm already seeing some replies. Check this out. We're getting a ping response, so I'll hold Control, press C, break out of that. Then we should be able to SSH back into that server, but this time, we don't want to use root anymore. We want to use the user that we just created. And going forward, what we'll do is use this user for all of the setup. Next, what we'll do is download Nextcloud. I'm going to paste the command in right here. Basically, what we'll do is use wget to download it. I have the URL right here, and I also have a link in the description down below this video that points to a blog article. And inside that blog article, you'll find all of the commands that I'm executing in this video if you want to copy and paste. Anyway, I'll execute this command to download Nextcloud. It'll always give me the latest version. And as you can see, it's downloading. Clear the screen, Control L if you're curious how I did that. And as you can see, we have the zip file right there. Now we're going to let that file sit for a bit. We'll come back to it later, but I just wanted to make sure that we had it downloaded so that way we'll have it when we do need it. Anyway, right now what we'll do is shift gears and install MariaDB. And that'll provide us with the database requirement for Nextcloud. So to do that, we'll run sudo apt install MariaDB-server, just like that. We'll press enter. We'll type in the password for our user account and press enter. It's going to install some additional dependencies here. That's all expected. I'll press enter. And now it's installing. So far, so good. What we can do now is type systemctl status to check the status of MariaDB. We want to make sure that it's actually running. And it is. It says active and running. So far, so good. Now, the next command that we're going to run is going to add some additional security to our MariaDB database server. Now, I want to be clear, though, it doesn't add much security. The command that we're going to run is going to walk us through some very important things, but it represents minimum things. I'll leave it up to you to explore security on your own, but the steps that I'm going to give you will give us some minimum security for MariaDB. To do it, we'll run sudo, then MySQL. Even though it's MariaDB, we still use MySQL for this command. Then secure installation. We have underscores in between each of the words here, so it's sudo MySQL _secure _installation. We'll press enter, and we'll begin the process of adding some basic security. At this point, it's asking us for the current root password, and this is not the Linux root user, this is the MariaDB database root user. When you first install MariaDB, the user root for MariaDB does not have a password, so we simply press enter here. Now, if you did set up MariaDB already in the past, and you do have a root password, then you could go ahead and enter that here. But since I just set this up, I don't have one, I'll press enter. Now it's asking us if we want to switch to Unix socket authentication. We don't want to do that for this. We're going to use the standard authentication for Nextcloud. So I'll type N for no and press enter. Now it's asking us if we want to change the root password, and I do. Notice that Y is capital. So when I press enter, it's going to assume that I want to add a password to root, and I do. So what I recommend that you do is create a randomly generated password and paste it in right here. I'm just going to use a demo password on my end, but I recommend that you create something secure. I'll type in my password for the root user here and press enter. I'll type it again and press enter. Now it wants to know if we want to remove anonymous users. I'll press enter for yes. Disallow root login remotely, enter for yes. Remove the test database and access to it, yes, so press enter. Reload the privilege tables, again yes, so enter. And that's it. We have successfully ran the MySQL secure installation script to add some minimum security to our database installation. Next, what we're going to do is create a database for Nextcloud to use. To do that, we want to be in the MariaDB shell. So what we could do is run sudo and then MariaDB. That'll work. When we enter that command, you'll notice that the prompt changes immediately. Notice that it says MariaDB. So we are in the MariaDB shell right now. So instead of Linux commands at this point, we're going to enter commands that are specific to MariaDB. Thankfully, I already know what I want you to type, so I'm going to give you all of the commands right now. The first thing we're going to do is type create database in caps. Well, you don't have to type it in caps, it's just etiquette. MySQL syntax, the command section is going to be in caps, and then any values that you add will be in whatever case you want them in. We want to create a database named Nextcloud. So I'll type Nextcloud. Because I want the database to be named Nextcloud lowercase, I named it Nextcloud lowercase. We'll end the statement with a semicolon, and then I'll press enter. Now at this point, it should have created the database for us. And to find out, we can type show and then databases, and the statement with a semicolon, and we can see the Nextcloud database has indeed been created. It's an empty database. It contains nothing. We have yet to use it, but now we have it. So when we're ready for it, it exists. But we also have to create a user account, or a grant, as it's known as, essentially a MySQL or MariaDB user to access that database. We don't want to give Nextcloud the root password. So what we'll do instead is create another user and give that user to Nextcloud instead. That just adds additional security. And this command is a bit on the longer side, so this is going to be one of those that you'll want to copy from the blog post that matches this video. You'll change my password to whatever you want yours to be. I'm just going to leave it as my password. I know that's terrible, but this is just a demo that I will be deleting after I end the recording, so I really don't care about this server. But in your case, try to create a different password, something more secure, and replace my password with whatever password you want the Nextcloud user to have. I'll press enter. And now we have that grant right there. So we'll type flush and then privileges. Basically reload everything, add a semicolon, then press enter. At this point, we're done with the MariaDB shell. So I'm going to log out of this. We can hold Control and press D. Notice that my command prompt returned to normal. I'm back to Ubuntu server. And now we can run the remaining commands to build our server. In fact, I'll paste in the next command right now. And here it is. Again, you could grab this from the official blog post. That's the last time I'll mention this. But these packages right here are required in one form or another for Nextcloud. What we're trying to do right now is install the Apache web server. Notice that I did not include Apache as one of the packages here. If I wanted to include it, I could add Apache 2. That's the name of the package. We want to make sure that that is installed. However, it should come along as a dependency anyway, so I'll press enter and let's see. Now notice that Apache 2 is going to be installed. We definitely need that package, so if for any reason it's not among the output, we will need to add it. But so far, I've never needed to add it because, again, it's a dependency. In fact, there's quite a few dependencies here, but I'll press enter to accept the default of yes to get these installed. All right, so far so good. You can run systemctl and then status Apache 2, and we should see that it's running. And in my case, it is. Now at this point, I recommend that we switch over to a browser. And what we'll do is try to access the server via the fully qualified domain name, in my case, nc.learnlinux.tv. We want to make sure that we see the Apache start page, and I do. So now we know that our server is accessible from the internet. I was able to access this particular page. Now, obviously, this is not Nextcloud. We have to create our Nextcloud server. That's what we're going to do now. But at least we know that the web server is working. We'll get back to the video in just a moment, but I wanted to let you know that I have a brand new Linux course available, and if you're looking to get certified, then this one is right up your alley. Over on Udemy, I've just launched my first ever certification prep course, and this one will teach you everything you need to know in order to pass the Linux Essentials exam and become certified through the Linux Professional Institute. And with over 200,000 certification holders, LPI is the first and largest vendor-neutral Linux and open source certification body. Any certification through LPI is a credential that will definitely be an asset to your career. And my brand new course is a perfect tool to help get you there. With my Linux Essentials course, you'll enjoy over 23 lessons that will teach you valuable Linux skills. Each video will keep you engaged while breaking down each and every topic into easy to understand concepts that will make even the most challenging topics seem simple. In addition, you'll be able to follow along with hands-on examples that will have you working directly with Linux commands and technologies. Even if you are not planning on becoming certified, the Linux Essentials course from Learn Linux TV is a great way to get into Linux in general. So even hobbyists will benefit from this course as well. Now don't worry though, this new Udemy course doesn't change any content that you've been enjoying here on YouTube. My new and completely separate venture on Udemy is designed to help boost your skills even further, and meanwhile, the videos here on YouTube will continue as they've been for over 10 years now. So check out my brand new Linux Essentials course and pass that exam. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the video. Now the next thing we're going to do is install some modules that Nextcloud needs. These are PHP modules. We want to make sure that these are available when Apache needs them. So we'll press enter on this, and it was as simple as that. Now it's time to take a look at that zip file, the one that's sat idle for a while now. We're going to unzip this file. In order to do that though, we will need to install the unzip utility. So what we'll do is run sudo apt install unzip. I'll press enter. Should be pretty fast, and it's already done. Now that we have the unzip command, which we can verify by running command-v and then unzip, we see output there, so we know we have it installed. Again, we have that file there, so what we could do is type unzip, and then the name of the file that we want to unzip, which is that one right there. And then when I press enter, it's going to blow up and show a bunch of text all over the screen. It's actually kind of cool. I'll press enter. All right. So now, as you can see, we have a Nextcloud folder right there. We don't really need the latest.zip anymore. You can keep it if you want to, but I don't need it because I have the Nextcloud folder that came from it. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is change the name. And this is just a personal preference. I like to keep the web root folder the same name as the actual domain or fully qualified domain. So what I'll do, change it to that name. Now we have nc.learnlinux.tv. On your end, what I want you to do is replace nc.learnlinux.tv anytime you see it with whatever your domain happens to be, your fully qualified domain name. This will be shown several times during the process from here on out. So again, just be sure to replace that with your domain and you should be good to go. So next what we want to do is change the ownership. What we'll do is type sudo and chown. We want to change ownership. We want to provide access to www-data. That's the username. That user came with Apache. So when you installed Apache earlier, that user was automatically created on your system. And that's the user that Apache runs under. So most of the time, if you didn't already know that, if you have a server service, it's most of the time going to have its own user. And also a group. There's also a www-data group as well. So we'll apply that. We'll make the change recursive with a -R option. That'll apply the changes to the nc.learnlinux.tv directory and everything underneath it as well. We'll give it the directory we want to apply that to, and then we'll press enter. And now, when I list the storage, we can see that the www-data user now owns that directory. Now I'm going to need to move that directory somewhere more appropriate. I don't want to run Nextcloud from my home directory. That wouldn't be a good idea. What I want to do instead is move it into /var/www. But since I don't own it anymore, I can't do that. So I'll need to use sudo, and I'll press enter. And now we can see within the /var/www directory, we have our Nextcloud directory right there. So far, so good. Now, earlier I showed you the Apache start page. We used that as an opportunity to make sure that everything works. But we don't really need that start page anymore. We're going to be installing Nextcloud. So what we're going to do is run sudo and then a2 dis site, which is short for Apache 2 disable site. We're going to disable 000-default. If you're curious, that file right there is a config file for Apache that tells it how to serve that particular start page, the one we saw earlier. And by disabling this, we're preventing Apache from being able to serve that page at all. We're effectively disabling it. Now here's telling us we can run systemctl reload Apache 2 to make this change be applied. We're going to actually restart Apache 2 later, so that'll take care of this. So we can ignore that and continue. Now the next thing we're going to do is create a config file. So I'll paste in the command, and there it is. Notice at the end I have nc.learnlinux.tv. You should change that to whatever your domain is. Leave the .conf at the end. Just want to keep the name consistent here. We're creating a config file for Apache to tell it how to serve Nextcloud. Since we don't have a default config file, right now when we restart Apache, it's not going to serve anything. So we need to give Apache something to serve, and Nextcloud is what we're installing. So we'll add that. Now in this file, there's 4 occurrences of nc.learnlinux.tv. I'm highlighting them right now. What you want to do is make sure that each occurrence, you change this to your domain name so everything matches. I'll leave that up to you, but here's the file. If you're satisfied with the file, we'll save it and then exit out. Next, what we'll do is enable the config file that we just created. So we'll run sudo and a2 nsite, the opposite of a2 dissite, if you didn't guess. And which one do we want to enable? Well, you should be able to just simply start typing your fully qualified domain name, then press tab. And since Apache knows where its config files are, it knows that it has a config file named that, so it auto-completed that for you, and this is correct, so I'll press enter. What that's going to do is enable Apache's ability to serve Nextcloud. It's still not going to work, but it is a component that we need, and now it's done. Next, what we're going to do is configure PHP. So what we'll do is type sudo and then nano /etc, then PHP, the version number, which is going to be 8.3 in Ubuntu 24.04, and then Apache 2, followed by php.ini. We want to edit this file right here. So I'll press enter, and there's a number of values here that we're going to want to change, and what I'm going to do is just walk you through each of these. We want to make sure that each of these options are not commented. The semicolon at the beginning of every line that you see right here means that that line is ignored. The first line is not. You see that there's no semicolon on the first line, so we want to basically find the first option and configure it. And the first option is memory limit. And in Nano, to search for text, you can hold Control, press W. We're going to type memory, then _limit. That's the option that we're looking for. Should already be here. We'll press enter, and there it is. So what we'll do is change this to 512 megabytes. Next, what we'll do is change the upload max file size. You don't have to type the entire option here. You just type part of it if you know part of it. And there it is. This one we'll set to 200 megabytes. So that way we can have bigger uploads to our file server here. And then next, we're looking for max execution time. And there it is. And what we'll do is change that to 360. And then we'll look for post max. For post max size, we'll set that to 200 M. Next, what we'll do is search for date. And here's the option we're looking for, date.timezone. What I'll do is set that to America/Detroit. And if you're curious what time zone you might want to use for yours, you see that URL in blue just above the line that I typed on. You can visit that particular page and see what you should type for your time zone. Next, what we'll do is search for op cache. We want to make sure that op cache is set to 1, and it is, but it's commented out. So remove the semicolon there. We don't want that commented out. That should be good for that option. Next, what we'll do is search for the word interned. It's currently set to 8. We want to set that to 16. And we're going to go all the way over here, uncomment this. Max accelerated files. This is the next one we needed anyway. We're just going to simply uncomment that. We do want that to be 10,000, which it is. Op cache memory consumption, there it is. We want to uncomment that one as well. And 128 is appropriate. Now we'll look for the save comments option, which should be a little bit further down, I think. And here it is. We're going to enable that. And then this right here, revalidate frequency, we're going to set that to 1. As long as you have all of those values, then you should be good to go. You can save the file and exit out. Next, what we're going to do is enable some Apache modules. We have the A2N mod for that purpose, and these are the modules that we want to enable. And these are modules that Nextcloud needs according to their documentation, so we are going to add these. So press enter. And some of these are going to be enabled already, but that's okay. We just wanted to make sure of that, and we'll continue. Now it's time to restart Apache. So we'll type sudo and then systemctl, restart, Apache 2, and that'll take care of any of the things that Apache needed a restart for earlier. We'll just take care of it all at once. We'll press enter. Then we'll check the status of Apache. We want to make sure that we don't have a typo or something didn't go wrong. Is it still running? Let's see. And it is. So far, so good. So let's switch over to a web browser. Let's go to that URL and see what happens. nc.learnlinux.tv in my case. And here we have Nextcloud. It's not configured yet, but we do have Nextcloud. Now, right now it's telling us that the connection is not secure. So before we go any further, let's take care of that right now. So we'll go back to a terminal. And let's set up TLS so that way we have a secure connection to our Nextcloud server. And to do this, I'm going to grab the instructions for certbot, essentially copying and pasting these straight from certbot's instructions. But these instructions are effective and they work. So certbot, the Let's Encrypt utility, which is how we're going to get the TLS certificate, they prefer the snapd distribution method. So that's what we're going to install. It may already be installed. That's okay if it is. And that's going to give us access to install snap packages. Anyway, here's the next command. We're going to use snap to install the core snap, and then we're going to refresh it. Semicolon is just separating the two commands. I'll press enter. And there it is. Next, what we're going to do is install certbot. And this is the command right here, per Let's Encrypt. We're going to run this to give us the certbot utility. Should be a fairly fast download. And this next command is creating a symbolic link between snap bin certbot and saving that as user bin certbot, just in case any utilities are looking for certbot in that location. I'll press enter. And now we should be able to get a certificate. To attempt to do so, we can run sudo and then certbot -- Apache. I'll press enter. And the first thing it's going to do is ask us for our email address. You do want to make sure that you give it a correct email address, because if there's any problem with renewing the certificate, it should renew on its own. but if for some reason that doesn't happen, you will get warning emails that'll let you know. It's just a good thing to have. So what I'll do is type in my email address right here. So I typed in my email address. The terms of service are located right here in that PDF if you want to check that out, but you have to agree to that to continue. So I'll type Y and press enter. And this is just asking if you want to be part of the newsletter. I do not. So I'll type N for no. Now it's asking us which domain we want to enable HTTPS for. I only have the one. So I'll type number 1 for selection number 1 and press enter. And there we go. According to this, we should have a certificate right now. And as you can see, we don't have a secure connection, but let's refresh it. And you can see that we do. So now that we know TLS is working. At this point, what we're going to do is fill out some information here to tell Nextcloud how we want it to work. We're going to keep most of this at the default option here, but we're going to create a username for ourselves and a password for our user. So I typed in mine. And then the database account, we used Nextcloud for the username. That was for the grant that we added earlier. Then we'll type in the database password right here. And then for the name of the database, we called ours Nextcloud. Our database server is in fact on localhost. We should be good to go. So we'll click install right here. You see what happens. All right, so far so good. So if we scroll down here, it's asking us if we want to install the recommended apps. I don't really see any reason not to do this. So we'll click this button. It might take a minute for it to finish. And check it out, here we are. I'll leave it up to you if you want to browse this slideshow right here. You can click anywhere else to make that go away. Now, what we're going to do is just take a look at something real quick, because if we click on our user icon right here and then go down to administration settings, we're going to see some warnings and errors. This is expected, but we are going to see this. So I'll just show it to you right now. You can see the errors in red. Some of these are warnings. Some of these we don't care about. I can't walk you through fixing all of these, but what I can do is try to walk you through fixing as many of these as possible. Now, some of these are pretty easy. For example, there's one that wants you to go to personal info and fill that out. I'll leave that up to you, so I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to worry about the more technical things here. So let's see how many of these errors we can get rid of. And the first of those, this is in no particular order, by the way, we're going to add some additional security to our config file. We definitely don't want anyone to be able to access this because it contains some very private information that's specific to our installation, so we don't want that. So what we'll do is type 660 for the permissions. And then what we want to do is type /var/www, and then your folder right here, and then config, and finally config.php. Basically, we're locking down this file. We don't want the world to be able to view this file. I mean, it literally has our database password in it, so we definitely don't want that to be seen by anyone. Next, what we'll do is change the ownership as well. I want to make sure that root owns this file, and that the www-data group also owns the file. That way Apache can access this file. We're going to use it against the same file, config.php. Next, what we'll do is change the ownership of that file. I want to make sure that root owns it. And I also want to make sure that the web server is able to access that as well. We're going to run that against the same file. Just like that. So now, if we take a look at that file, we want to view the permissions for it. Just make sure that everything is proper. And it looks good to me. In fact, let's make some changes to that file. Let's go ahead and edit this. So what we'll do is open that file up in an editor. And here it is. There's a few things that we want to add to this file. And there's two options that we'll add here. So what we'll do is go all the way to the bottom. We're going to add a new line. We're going to paste it in right here. So just grab that command from the article and paste it right there. Now there's another one. So we'll press enter again, and I'll paste it in right here. We're going to set the default phone region. This is something that's helpful to have in this file. If your region is not US, you can change that. You can place your 2-digit region identifier there if it's not that one. Anyway, we'll save the file and exit out. Now there's another package that we want to install. And I meant to give this one to you guys earlier. And it's this package right here, but I'll give it to you now. In the blog post, this one is going to be included with a previous command, the one where we went ahead and installed PHP. I just added it to that, but in my notes, I forgot to do that. But we do want to have this installed. It's not required, but it does get rid of one of those errors, and it does increase functionality. ImageMagick allows for image manipulation, something we might need, but we'll install that. That'll make Nextcloud happy. And there it is. Now, the last thing that I'm going to have you do for this video is to add some additional security to Nextcloud. And to do that, we're going to edit yet another config file here. We're going to go into the Apache 2 directory here, under Sites Available. If I press Tab twice, you'll see a list of files here. The one that we want to edit is the one that includes LE in the file name. So your file name will vary, but it's going to look something like this. So we're going to open that up. And what we're going to do is find server name, this one right here. Add some white space before and after. I'm going to paste it in. And of course, I'm going to line this all up, make sure everything is identical. And there we go. We are enabling strict transport security, something that's recommended by Nextcloud themselves. Save the file, and then we'll exit. Finally, let's restart Apache one more time to see how many errors we can get rid of. So, systemctl restart Apache 2. Let's go back to our browser. And then what I'll do is just go back to the same page. Now we do have a few things here that we could fix. So what I'm going to do is show you how to fix this one right here, this big nasty message. Now what this is telling us is that there's some additional information that Nextcloud prefers to have in its database that it doesn't add by default. I have no idea why, and it doesn't make any sense to me why we would have to go in and do this, but it is the case. So we do need to take care of this. Well, we don't need to, but it's a good idea. But I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So what we're going to do is go back to our terminal. And what we're going to do is run sudo chmod +x. We're going to add the execute bit to a file. And the file is /var/www. And then our directory here. We should have a file named OCC. That file is not executable, but we're about to make it so, temporarily at least. So now what we're going to do is run sudo /var/www, and then that same directory, OCC again, and then we're going to add a little bit more to the end of the command. Specifically, what we're going to do is grab this right here, starting with DB, ending in indices. We're going to grab that part. I have a space at the end of the command so far. We're going to paste that in at the end. So what we're doing is we are using the OCC script to add the missing indices into the database, basically. So this should take care of it. Now, in order for the OCC script to work, there is a change that we have to make. So what I'll do is walk you through that right now. And what we'll do is run sudo and then nano. The file that we're going to edit is going to be this one, /etc PHP 8.3. Mods available. And the file is apcu.ini. We're going to open that up. Then underneath the current line, what we'll do is enable this by typing apc.enable_CLI. We're going to set that equal to 1. Save the file. Exit out. And then what we're going to do is use the OCC script, which was this one right here. And we're going to use that to add the missing database information. So what I'll do is paste it in right here. And now we have the completed command. So what we'll do is run the OCC script. And as an argument, we're going to give it db:/add missing indices. Press enter. And that looks promising, doesn't it? Probably don't need to restart Apache, but I will just in case. Restart Apache 2. All right, now let's go back to the browser. And remember, we have this big error right here. Let's see if that goes away. And most everything here is fine. Now there's some additional things, as you can see, that we could tweak, but we've done everything that we have to do. Everything here is optional. I'll leave that up to you to research that if you want to, but you have right now your very own Nextcloud server that is all set and ready to go. How cool is that? And there's our video. Hope you enjoy your brand new Nextcloud server. And if you do, I hope you click that like button to let YouTube know. That way YouTube knows that we need more Linux related goodness on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, be sure you subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I will see you in the next video.